Hey guys, today I just wanted to talk about some motivation triggers, right? Everybody always say, well, what makes a motivated seller? What makes a seller truly motivated? So just wanted to jump in this afternoon and talk about some of the motivation triggers that we always run into that sellers often have, right? So what would make somebody want to sell their property at 50 cents on a dollar, or 60, 70 cents on a dollar? If a property is worth $100,000, why would they want to sell for $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, stuff like that, right? So there's different motivation triggers that often occur that to where a seller says, you know what, I'm willing to sell my property at a discount, as long as you solve this problem that I'm having. So that's one of the things that you have to understand, is you have to find sellers that want to sell versus, I'm sorry, you got to find sellers that need to sell versus want to sell. That is truly a big difference, because anybody can want to sell, and they can want to sell for top dollar versus someone that initially needs to sell. So what are some of those motivation triggers? I'm gonna probably go over about 4 or 5 of them, so you can identify these motivation triggers when you're talking with sellers on the phone. There's key words that you want to listen for, there's key things that you want to hear, and then you can start to identify if this person is truly interested in selling and need to sell. So one of the motivation triggers is pre-foreclosure. Are they going through pre-foreclosure? Is there some kind of money distress? Pre-foreclosure is when they're behind on their mortgage, but the bank haven't went in and took the property yet. So they may be 3-4 months behind on their mortgage, and the bank is saying, hey, you know what, you got 90 days to get this mortgage caught up, or we're going to take the house. So what can you do in that instance? That's one of the triggers where you say, okay, well, Mr. Seller, we can definitely help you. That way you don't have this mortgage go on your credit, which will destroy your credit for 7 to 10 years. You won't be able to buy a car, you won't be able to rent a property. So let us help you with this situation. That way you don't have to go through foreclosure. So those pre-foreclosure motivation triggers is definitely a trigger that you want to listen for when you're talking with sellers. And a lot of people say, there's not many foreclosures out here or anything like that, which is absolutely true, but you only need to find one, right? You can find one person that's going through pre-foreclosure, and it can make you $30,000, $40,000 just on that one deal. So you definitely need to be aware of and listen to pre-foreclosure triggers. Another one is, and I'm not going to be long today, but another one is city liens, or really any kind of property lien. City liens, can be a water lien from a past due water bill that was never taken care of, or it could be maintenance liens as far as, repairs that the city say you need to do. It could be something as small as, the person hadn't cut their grass because they're no longer living there. We had a property where the city had a lien on the property for a couple of years because the person wasn't maintaining the property, and the city would go out, cut the grass, and they would charge them like $300 per each time they cut the grass. So naturally, if a seller is in distress, they're not worried about cutting grass or anything like that. So those city liens can pile up really, really quickly, and then those judgments go against the property. So there's ways that you can help the seller that's behind or have these type of city liens. There's mechanics liens also, where a seller may have had a contractor come out and do some work, and now they're going through a fight with the contractor and don't want to pay the contractor, and the contractor slaps a mechanics lien on the property. So now they can't sell that property until that lien is paid in full. And then you have IRS liens also. So when it comes tax time, you can really start looking for people that hasn't paid their income taxes, or if they're a small business owner and they're more so worried about keeping the doors of their business open and not paying like the payroll taxes, or their income taxes, the federal government will put a lien on that property. So these are some of the triggers that you have to listen for in order to see if this person is in a need to sell situation or if they're in a want to sell situation. One of another one, and one of my most favorite and normally the most lucrative, is probates. So we had a situation where we had a young lady, the grandfather passed away and he didn't have a will. And naturally, the family started arguing over who controlled the asset of that property. And the granddaughter had been living with the grandparent for a number of years. So we had to hire a probate attorney in order to make sure that the deed was transferred over to the granddaughter in order for the granddaughter to sell. Now, this property was in deplorable condition. There was no running water. They were living in the property. There was no air conditioning, and it was out here in Arizona in like August when I first met them. So it was like 115 degrees, and they were living there. It was her grandmother, her older aunt, her boyfriend, and like 4 kids, and they were all living in this house. And literally, when we walked up to the house, they took the screen off the door, off the house, and that's how we walked into the house. So it didn't even have a front door on the property. But she was going through probate. She didn't know how to handle the probate process, and we stepped in and we was able to work with our attorney, so she was able to be awarded, the trustee of the estate, and then she was able to sell that property. And one of the reasons why I really, really liked that deal, and it wasn't because of the money that was made, but it was because they was able to have a better living standard by selling that house. We was able to help them get a nice 3-bedroom apartment, AC, the kids were in a good school district, so it upgraded their living standards when they was in a position where they didn't know exactly what to do. So remember, we always want everybody to be happy in the transactions. We want to be happy, we want the seller to be happy, and we want the end buyer to be happy. And that was a situation where they was definitely all parties was happy. Another one, so we did pre-foreclosure, we did city liens, we did probates. Divorce is another motivation trigger. One of my first deals was a divorcee. Husband left her. She was awarded the house, but she had 5 kids and she had no income besides subsidized governmental assistance, and that wasn't enough to pay the mortgage. So she had to sell the property, and we got that lead directly from the agent. The agent said, "Hey, you know what? I know a lady that absolutely needs to sell. We tried to have it on the market, but it just didn't sell, and we want to know if you guys would be willing to purchase the property." And we were able to get that deal done. And then again, we helped the seller because the seller was able to move with her 5 kids, going through a troublesome time, going through a divorce, husband left, and she had no income. It's tired landlords. And this one you can find quite often. And there's 2 categories to this. Is tired landlords in state and tired landlords out of state. What that means is they live in the state where their rental property is, or they live out of state. And tired landlords that live out of state is definitely a gold gem, especially if they're trying to self-manage. So this is one of the things that I did when I first started with my rental portfolio. Lived here in Arizona, had rentals in Illinois, and I was trying to self-manage. And issues would come up where I was flying back and forth, and I was like, you know what, this don't make any sense. The cost of this charging me to fly back and forth was eating up my profit. So I was in a situation where, you know what, something had came up to where I was very, very close to being a motivated seller and tired landlord that lived out of state. But I was able to put property management in place. But Tired landlords is definitely a good resource. They go through a lot of stressors. It may be they have a poor tenant that's not paying a rent. Could be increase in property taxes go up, increase in repairs, and they don't want to handle the repairs, or they just have a poor property manager and they're losing market share or whatever from their property. So the property at one point may have been a great acquisition, but years down the road, they could say, what, this property is just not worth it, and I want to sell. And it ties back into what we talked about earlier, city liens. If you have a poor property management in place, it's not their property. They may not take care of the property, and then the landlords start getting notices from the city, and they just say, what, I'll just throw my hands up and let me just sell this property and move on. So tired landlords is another one. And then inherited properties, kind of like what I was talking about with the young lady that we had to help through probate, inherited properties. And one of the key things that you want to listen for when you're dealing with inherited properties is, say I inherited a property and I have a mortgage on my home, and the property that I inherited may have a mortgage. So now I just inherited a bill unexpectedly. And we know that in the United States today, people are living paycheck to paycheck. And having that additional mortgage, can definitely bankrupt a person. So they immediately say, all right, you know what? I can't assume this additional mortgage. Let's sell this property, and let's sell it as quickly as possible because we don't have the money to fix it up, put it on the market. So inherited properties are definitely key areas, especially when they're carrying two mortgages, or they just don't want to deal with cleaning out the property. Sometimes they have a family member or something pass away, and they don't want to leave from where they live to go over there and handle this situation of cleaning out this property, dealing with everything, dealing with the transfer, plus dealing with the sale, plus dealing with whatever they have going on in their personal life and professional life. So they said, man, you know what? This is just one extra burden that I don't want to deal with. What can I do? And the first thing that they think of is sell the property. So let's just keep that in mind. And then also, they may not want to deal with the emotions that's behind it. It may be a family member that passed away, and they really don't want to go back to the property because it triggers, some memories that they just don't want to deal with. So I just wanted to kind of go over those. Just to recap, it was pre-foreclosures, city liens, probates, divorce leads, tired landlords, inherited properties, and then one that I didn't even touch on but kind of glanced on was just deferred maintenance. They may own a property, they may be older, and they can't keep up with the property. The property may need a new roof, may be time to update electrical, something like that, and they just can't maintain the property. So there's different motivation triggers out there that you need to listen for. Just to give you one last one of the things that we do a lot is, we know here in Arizona, it's a state with an older population. So we look for 55 and older property owners that own a property that has 2,000 square feet or more. So why is that important? Because if they're 55 and older, and really we're looking on the higher end, 65 plus, and the property is 2,000 square feet. One, it's too much space for them. They are, empty nesters now. The kids have moved away. Grandkids don't come by or something like that. So it's too much house for them to maintain. So that's one. And then also, if it's a two-story, they don't want to navigate going up and down the steps. So that's another trigger that you can listen for. So you just have to be attentive and know when you're on the phone with these sellers, there's key things that you need to listen for. So I just wanted to jump in today and share with you guys some of the things that we train our students on to listen for when they're on the phone with sellers, because you can gloss over some of this and miss out on a deal, miss out on an opportunity. So man, enjoy your weekend. It's Saturday. Just wanted to jump in here and give you guys some words of wisdom on today. Mrcs Maloney. Feel free, if you want that free 15-minute consultation, go to mrcsmaloney.com, or if you want to download that free purchase contract, you can go to mrcsmaloney.com and download that free purchase contract. Tons of videos here on YouTube, so have at it, man. Go ahead. It's tons of free content. That's what I just want to put out for you. So enjoy your weekend. Thank you, and we'll talk next Saturday.